And now, here to let you know there is no perfect movie, here is Tyler Wolff.
Thank you, Caleb. What's going on, everybody? I'm Tyler, and I'm here to let you know that Bad Times at the El Royale is no perfect movie. And it takes place during the late 1960s, where four strangers, played by Jeff Bridges, Cynthia Erivo, if I got that wrong, I apologize, Jon Hamm, and Dakota Johnson all check in at the El Royale Hotel. They each have a certain event in their past that's a lot for them to bear, and they're at this hotel each for a very different reason. And we see from a non-linear perspective how their paths unintentionally cross and interfere with each other. Now, when I first heard about this movie, all I knew for sure was the title, the cast, and that it was Hateful Eight in the 1960s, and instantly I'm just like, I'm there. So I didn't watch any trailers, I stayed away from as much information as possible. I tried not to let the established actors who were in the movie get in my head as to, oh, they're automatically in this, then that's just going to be gold. Because I was expecting this movie to be kind of a Tarantino-inspired film, and there are definitely elements that have made Tarantino famous that are in this movie. It is told in a non-linear fashion. There are very small little details, like each sequence is represented through a title card. It is told out of order, and there are some moments where the dialogue does feel like it's trying to be like one of his scripts, where the actors, as good as they are, recite almost like every single one of their actions right as they're about to do it, which is a trait of Tarantino's I'm kind of getting sick of, if I'm being honest. So I was kind of worried that it would be more of a pastiche rather than a good movie. But the thing that this movie gets right, that a lot of Tarantino knockoffs like Smokin' Aces or, hell, some of Guy Ritchie's latest crime thrillers have been, is that the style is there, but the story is interesting and has some really neat twists and turns, and the characters, even when they're not super complex or really fleshed out in terms of depth, they all have very charismatic personalities and are performed incredibly well by this really talented cast. For the first half of the movie, it does feel like an ensemble moment because it takes an equal amount of time establishing each character, their secrets, their motivations, and how they come across with each other. And then about the second half, it becomes clear who the main focus is supposed to be on. But out of the main stars, my two favorites especially were Jeff Bridges and Cynthia Erivo, because even though all of them have shady aspects about themselves, Bridges and Erivo are much more calm and subdued when it comes to that. The second the two of them meet each other, they realize how they're more similar in regards to how they're dealing with their problems, and you get the sense that they want to admit more about them, even when they've told each other very personal things that you wouldn't normally tell any other stranger. I gotta be honest, Jon Hamm started off being really annoying because at first the persona that he's trying to portray is this very talkative salesman who has some awkwardly casual racist things to say about Erivo, but once he gets to his room, things get really tense from there, and he gives a much more nuanced performance because he does a lot of his scenes without even talking. It's usually him investigating the other members of the hotel, and just through looking at his eyes, we can tell that he kind of has these people picked, but because of reasons I don't want to give into, he feels as if he can't really do anything about it, because he does see himself as a good person. Dakota Johnson was a pleasant surprise because her character probably is developed the most slowly in order to get a grasp of who she is, because she starts off as a very shady individual who absolutely wants nothing to do with anybody. She'll say as little as possible, and once we're revealed certain things about her past, it totally makes sense as to why she would be so bitchy to everybody. And you kind of feel sorry for her, especially towards the end, where a character says or does something that is just so stupid, and you can see the look on her eyes, and it's just like, I'm wasting my time helping you, and this is how you repay me? Now let's talk about Chris Hemsworth, because in the very few advertising that I did see for the movie, they kind of built him up as being this big player. And yeah, he is. But he's only teased periodically in the first hour or so, and he doesn't officially show up until the last third of the movie where he really takes hold of the situation. And I gotta say, performance-wise, for the most part, he does something different and unique for him, because we already see him as this charismatic hero from stuff like 4, But here, he's much more manipulative and he loves to toy with people's minds. And he likes to see himself, again, as someone who is doing the right thing. And if you tell him otherwise, he will not show how angry he is, because he loves to present himself as being this calm gentleman. I will say this, when Hemsworth shows up, the movie feels like it stops for a few minutes, because they do take their time to build up just how much he likes to intimidate and fear other people, and I can understand why they did that. But I felt like every other character had an equal amount of time showing like their past and their present and how they're building up each mystery. And with him, his felt like the most streamlined. And Drew Goddard does an excellent job directing this movie. Like I said, there are a few Tarantino-inspired moments, but what keeps his direction fresh in this movie is that he does things that Tarantino wouldn't normally do. Like, there are many scenes that are drawn out in near-complete silence or without any dialogue, which is something that you don't really see in a mainstream movie that much anymore. And as opposed to dialogue, he portrays many of the characters' feelings just for the camera work. There are a lot of really impressive wide shots that don't rely on cutting back and forth between characters. He'll just put one actor in the foreground, another in the background, and just expect us to be mature enough to look between each character and be like, this is really interesting, what's going to happen next? There's a lot of subtle symbolism revolving around mirrors or having bars separate a character from one another just to illustrate how isolated and trapped each character feels with their past and how they just want to admit what's going on, but problem is they're doing illegal shit, so you can't really do anything about it. The other minor problem is that I felt like they could have done a little bit more with Lewis Pullman's character. Like, he does have an interesting backstory, and there are a couple moments he has in the climax that were really cool to watch. But they wait a really long time in order to flesh him out as a character, and I felt like they could have put in a few hints in, like, the first two acts of the movie. Bad Times at the El Royale has stylish direction, an incredible cast who all give really good performances, some interesting twists and turns, and a very killer soundtrack. Seriously, you guys gotta look it up. It's some really good retro songs. And for those reasons, I'm gonna give Bad Times at the El Royale a 4 out of 5. Guys, thanks as always for watching, and if you've seen Bad Times, what were your thoughts on it? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like, subscribe, check out my other reviews at noperfectmovie.com. And Caleb, tune us out.
Be sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more No Perfect Movie reviews.